Did you know there are a lot of rivers in Georgia, but there are 3 major rivers? Let's talk about them. This will match the standard SS2G1, which is Geographic Understanding on a 2nd grade level. We will be focusing on point B, which is to locate on a physical map the major rivers, Savannah, Flint, and Chattahoochee. So let's dive in. So when you're looking at the map of Georgia, there are 2 rivers that border the state with one major river in the middle. So the one that borders it to the left, which is on the Alabama-Georgia line, is the Chattahoochee River. And the one that borders it to the very far right on the Georgia-South Carolina line is the Savannah River. And then the Flint River in the middle. So to begin, let's talk about the Savannah River. As we said, the Savannah River borders on the right-hand side of the Georgia line by South Carolina. So that'll be an easy thing to remember, but another great way to remember is just by its name. So Savannah River is likely named because the river first flows in the south of the state near the Atlantic Ocean, close to Savannah, Georgia, and then flows upward. So, you know, even if you do not look at the states beside it and you're just looking at Georgia itself, you know only one portion of Georgia can touch the ocean, and that is where Savannah and all of our pretty little Tybee, our little beach areas are. So Savannah River starts there and goes upward, so it's a great way to remember it. Now, Savannah River is also very special because it actually branches off on the South Carolina border and turns into the Tougaloo and Chattahoochee River. So that's a neat fact about it. If we go directly to the opposite side of the state, the left-hand side, we see the next bordering river, the Chattahoochee River, and that is on the Alabama-Georgia line. Now, it starts on the Alabama-Georgia line, but it actually ducks over to the right a little bit and goes up to the Blue Ridge Mountains. So the Savannah River does go up to the Blue Ridge Mountains as well, but if you look, the Savannah River actually kind of follows the outline of Georgia, whereas the Chattahoochee River follows the outline until it gets to about the Piedmont area, maybe a little south of that, and then it splits over. So the Piedmont area we know of is kind of the central heart of Georgia. So the Chattahoochee River is pretty familiar with a lot of people. If you go to places like Helen, Georgia, you might have heard Shoot the Hooch because it's very, very popular to tube down the Chattahoochee River. The Flint River and the Savannah River, however, are more common among kayakers and boaters and things like that. And the Chattahoochee River is very popular for boaters and kayakers as well, but it definitely has its reputation for being a great place to tube and swim. The Chattahoochee River is the longest of the 3 major rivers, and a neat fact about it is that it likely got its name from a Creek Indian word meaning painted rock. So, chat meaning stone, and then hoochie meaning marked or flowered, loosely translated to painted rock, which is representative of a lot of the rocks that are found on the Chattahoochee River banks, and that is even more prevalent when you go further up toward the mountains of Georgia as well. So that may be a possible way to remember that one. And this brings us to our last river, the Flint River. Now, the Flint River is the smaller of the 3 rivers, but still very important. The Flint River starts in western Georgia and flows upward to the Piedmont area. As we said earlier, if you're local to Georgia, you know right around that Piedmont area is Atlanta, our bustling metropolis. So that might help you if you're looking at a map of Georgia and say you're labeling the rivers, or say you might have a hard time differentiating which one goes to which. Then you can be reminded that the Flint River stops close to the Piedmont area. So the Flint River is actually pretty neat. It's had a few names before, but Flint has become the most common because of the flint stones that were found along the river. Now, the Creek Native American tribe of that time likely used these flint stones to make tools and arrowheads. A lot of the names in Georgia, from the towns to the rivers, important places, are actually derived from either Cherokee or Creek Native American tribes. So obviously they were here long before us, and so that's where that comes from. Now, the Cherokee Indians kind of stayed on the northern end of the state near the mountains, whereas the Creek Indians stayed on the lower end. They really didn't go above the Piedmont line, and they actually stayed near the coastal area of our state. So the Piedmont area pretty much was the line for that, but usually on the coastal plains. Now, they probably did visit the Flint River often, so I think it's very neat that Flint River did get its name from the flint stones that were found there, and it just goes to show you that years ago, the Creek Native American people may have used those to make their own tools, arrowheads, things like that. So there's a lot of history in these rivers, and learning about them is not only pretty interesting, but also really informative and really good source of knowledge to build upon. Now, I know that they can be confusing because they all do look kind of similar, and they have some weird names, like the Chattahoochee, for example, but if you're able to take what you learned today, hopefully that'll help you to be able to know which one is which. And if you were to look at it on a map, even without names, you might be able to take the knowledge that you gained today and put with it. So thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed this.